The sonar room at Guam Station 7 hummed with machinery. Petty Officer Martinez leaned into his console, headphones pressed tight. The sonar sweep glowed green against the dark walls. The trench was supposed to be empty. Always empty, but tonight, something stirred. A faint echo flickered across the screen. Martinez adjusted the gain. The line thickened. Not a ship, not a sub. Too deep, too heavy. "Chief, you need to see this," Martinez called out. Chief Petty Officer Thompson shuffled over, coffee in hand. He expected another false alarm, but as his eyes settled on the screen, his expression hardened. "Depth?" he asked. Martinez swallowed. 2 miles below the trench floor. Thompson frowned. "That's impossible. The trench floor max is at 35,000. The contact pulsed again, stretching across the display. Not drifting like debris, not fading like static. It was moving. Martinez switched to audio. Through the static came a low, rhythmic sound. Slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat echoing through the abyss. "That's not geology," Thompson muttered. Martinez shook his head. "It's responding to our pings." The room froze. Machines beeped softly. The sound grew louder, steady, and organic. Every man knew what it resembled. Breathing. Thompson grabbed the secure line to the Pentagon. His hand shook as he spoke into the receiver. "Control, this is Guam Station 7. We have an anomalous sonar contact at grid 779er. Depth is below the trench floor. Repeat, below the ocean floor. Contact is active." Static hissed. Then a reply. "Maintain observation. Record everything. A team is being assembled." On the display, the shape turned slowly, circling, as if it knew it was being watched. Thompson opened the logbook, voice unsteady as he dictated. Entry 0214 hours. Sonar painted a target 2 miles beneath the ocean floor. Unknown size. Unknown origin. Contact appears to be alive. He paused, eyes fixed on the pulsing screen. His final words were almost a whisper. "Whatever's down there, it knows we've found it." Asterisk. The Pentagon's deep-sea operations briefing room is windowless and sterile, dominated by a large conference table surrounded by men in naval uniforms. Lieutenant Commander James Harris stands at attention before a projection screen showing sonar data from Guam Station 7. Admiral Kellerman, a weathered officer with cold gray eyes, slides a manila folder marked "Classified" across the polished table. "Lieutenant Commander Harris, you've been selected to lead a deep-sea reconnaissance mission. Your team will consist of 3 of our most experienced deep-sea divers." Harris opens the folder, scanning personnel files. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Cole, 15 years underwater experience, including classified operations in the Bering Sea. Ensign Maria Ramirez, youngest diver to qualify for experimental depth programs. Petty Officer First Class William Douglas, technical specialist in pressure hull systems. Your vessel will be the Tri-S-2, modified for extreme depth operations, Admiral Kellerman continues. Officially, you're conducting a geological survey of trench formations. Unofficially, you're investigating a sonar anomaly that shouldn't exist. Harris studies the sonar printouts, noting the impossible depth readings. "Sir, these coordinates. Place the contact below the seafloor itself." "How is that possible?" "That's what you're going to find out, Commander. The contact has been moving in patterns suggesting intelligence. It responds to our active sonar, but hasn't approached the surface. We need eyes on target." The briefing officer pulls down a map of the Pacific. Red circles mark the Mariana Trench, with depth measurements that descend into geological impossibility. Your mission parameters are simple. Descend to maximum operational depth, locate and identify the source of these sonar returns, document everything. Admiral Kellerman's expression grows grave. "Commander, this mission has the highest classification level. Success or failure, what you discover stays in this room. Your crew will sign non-disclosure agreements that extend beyond military service." Harris nods, understanding the weight of the assignment. "Crew selection wasn't random, was it, sir? Each team member has proven their ability to handle unusual circumstances. Chief Cole survived the Arctic incident in '58. Ramirez has psychological profiles indicating exceptional stress tolerance. Douglas designed hull modifications that shouldn't theoretically work, but do. When do we deploy?" Harris asks, closing the classified folder. "Transport leaves Pearl Harbor at 0600 tomorrow. Commander, Whatever's down there has been hidden for a reason. Find out what that reason is. Asterisk the modified Trieste-2 submersible hangs suspended above the Pacific surface, its titanium hull gleaming under harsh floodlights. Inside the cramped crew compartment, Lieutenant Commander Harris runs through final systems checks while his three-man crew straps into their positions. Chief Petty Officer Cole monitors pressure readings as the submersible begins its descent into the blue-black depths. Passing 1,000 feet, pressure nominal. He reports, his voice steady despite the growing darkness outside the reinforced portholes. Ensign Ramirez watches the sonar display as fish scatter from their descent path. Marine life is acting strange, sir. Usually see more activity at these depths, but everything's moving away from our target coordinates. The submersible's hull creaks and pops as water pressure increases. These are normal sounds that every deep sea diver learns to ignore, but today something feels different. The regular pattern of structural adjustment is interrupted by sounds that don't belong. Anyone else hearing that? Petty Officer Douglas asks, pausing his equipment diagnostics. Through the hull comes a low, rhythmic sound, like metal under stress, but with an organic quality that makes their skin crawl. Harris checks the external microphones. Could be thermal layers creating audio distortion. The trench has unusual acoustic properties. That's not thermal distortion, Cole mutters, his experienced ear detecting something wrong. I've heard hull stress, I've heard whale songs, I've heard underwater avalanches. That's not any of those things. The sound grows more pronounced. As they descend past 3,000 feet, it pulses with a rhythm too regular to be geological, too deep to be biological. The frequency seems to resonate through their bones rather than their ears. Ramirez adjusts the hydrophones, trying to isolate the source. It's coming from below us, but also around us, like we're inside something large that's breathing. Breathing? Harris questions, maintaining command authority despite his own growing unease. Douglas checks the hull integrity sensors obsessively. All systems green, but these readings don't make sense. External pressure is fluctuating in patterns, not random variations. Cole's weathered face shows concern as he listens to the rhythmic groaning through the hull. His 15 years of underwater experience tell him they're hearing something impossible. Commander, Cole says quietly, that's not the ocean making those sounds. That's something alive. Something big enough that we're hearing it breathe through 4 inches of titanium. The crew falls silent, listening to the deep, rhythmic sounds that shouldn't exist at these depths. Lieutenant Commander Harris maintains his grip on military protocol as the strange sounds continue echoing through the Trieste-2's hull. Gentlemen, we're dealing with acoustic phenomena common to deep ocean environments. The trench creates unique sound propagation that can seem unusual to inexperienced ears. Chief Petty Officer Cole's jaw tightens at the implication. With respect, sir, I've logged more deep-sea hours than anyone in the Navy. What we're hearing isn't in any manual. Ensign Ramirez removes her headphones and looks up from the sonar console. My grandmother was from the Philippines. She told stories about the deep trenches, said they weren't empty spaces, but sleeping places for things older than human memory. Ensign, we're conducting a scientific mission based on empirical data, not folklore, Harris responds, but his voice lacks its earlier conviction. The rhythmic breathing sounds have grown stronger, more pronounced. Douglas checks his instruments again, confusion evident on his face. Sir, these pressure readings suggest we're in a cavity, not open water, but sonar shows normal depth measurements. It's like the water itself is displaced. Cole leans back in his seat, studying the commander's tense posture. You can quote regulations all you want, sir, but 15 years underwater teaches you to trust your instincts. Right now, my instincts are screaming that we're not alone down here. Ramirez adjusts the external cameras, scanning the darkness beyond their lights. Pacific sailors have stories about the trenches. They call them the swallowers, places where the ocean itself is hungry. My grandmother said you could feel them watching before they decided whether to let you pass. That's enough superstition. Harris snaps, but sweat beads on his forehead despite the controlled cabin temperature. We have a job to do. Whatever we're experiencing has a rational, scientific explanation. Does it? Cole challenges. Because I've never heard hull acoustics. That sound like breathing. I've never seen pressure readings that pulse like a heartbeat, and I've damn sure never felt like something the size of a city block was circling us in the dark. The submersible shudders slightly, as if brushed by something massive. All four men freeze, listening to the groaning sounds that seem to respond to their presence. Douglas whispers, "Maybe some things are too big to fit in our understanding, sir." Harris grips his command chair tighter. Military training wars with growing dread as the impossible sounds continue around them, suggesting they've descended into something that shouldn't exist. The Trias-2's powerful floodlights pierce the absolute darkness of the deep trench, creating a cone of illumination in the vast underwater void. At 4,000 feet below surface, the external cameras capture only empty water and the occasional piece of marine debris drifting past. Switching to maximum illumination, Douglas announces, adjusting the light array controls. The floodlights intensify, pushing their effective range to nearly 200 feet in all directions. That's when they see it. Movement in the peripheral darkness, something vast shifting just beyond their light range. The shadow moves with purpose, too large and too fluid to be ocean current or debris. Contact bearing 270 degrees, Ramirez calls out, her voice tight with tension. Something big moving parallel to our position. Harris peers through the forward porthole, trying to make sense of what the lights reveal. Could be a whale. Blue whales can reach these depths during migration. Blue whales don't move like that, Cole responds grimly. And they're not that big. The shadow passes beneath them, and for a moment the submersible rocks gently in what might be a wake. Douglas monitors the hull sensors, watching for any sign of contact or damage. Suddenly, the movement stops. The water around them becomes eerily still, as if every living thing in the deep has frozen in place. The only sound is their own breathing, and the steady hum of life support systems. Then, from directly ahead, something reflects their floodlights back at them. Jesus Christ, Douglas whispers. Day and I, larger than their entire viewing porthole, stares back at them from the darkness. The iris is pale yellow with intricate patterns that seem to shift and move in the harsh artificial light. Intelligence looks back at them, ancient and alien. The eye blinks once, a massive lid closing and opening with deliberate slowness. The movement creates a pressure wave that rocks the Trias-2 like a toy boat. "Are you getting this on camera?" Harris asks, his command voice reduced to a whisper. "Recording everything," Ramirez confirms, her hands shaking as she operates the external documentation equipment. The eye studies them for what feels like an eternity, but measures only seconds. Then, with fluid grace that defies its enormous size, whatever creature owns that eye moves away from their lights and vanishes into the deep. The submersible trembles as something brushes against their hull, not an impact, but a gentle touch, as if the creature is examining them with the same curiosity. "They showed it." Cole's voice is barely audible. "It looked at us. It actually looked at us and was thinking about what we are." The darkness swallows their lights again, but all four men know they're no longer alone in the depths. The communication array crackles with static as Lieutenant Commander Harris attempts to establish contact with the surface support vessel. "Control, this is Deep 6. Request immediate consultation with marine biology specialists. We have encountered an unknown species of significant size." Instead of the clear digital transmission they expect, the radio fills with distorted audio, voices, stretched and warped by something that shouldn't affect their encrypted military communications. Beneath the static comes a low-frequency moan that seems to emerge from the ocean itself. "Control, do you copy? Repeat, this is Deep 6 requesting immediate surface consultation." Harris adjusts frequency settings, but every channel carries the same otherworldly interference. Ensign Ramirez works frantically at the sonar console as impossible readings fill her screen. "Sir, sonar is painting a contact that stretches across the entire display range. According to these readings, we're surrounded by something larger than a nuclear aircraft carrier." Chief Petty Officer Cole monitors the communication attempts, his experienced ear detecting something wrong with the audio distortion. "Commander, that interference isn't random. Listen to the pattern. It's mimicking our transmission protocols." The low-frequency moan grows stronger, and their hull begins vibrating in sympathy with the sound. Douglas checks structural integrity sensors as the titanium shell resonates like a tuning fork. Surface control, this is Deep 6. We need immediate extraction protocols. Unknown contact is interfering with our systems. Harris's voice carries an edge of desperation as military protocol struggles against inexplicable circumstances. The radio crackles, and for a moment they hear a clear response. Deep 6, this is Control. Your transmission is breaking up. What is your status? Before Harris can respond, the transmission warps and distorts. The voice from the surface becomes deeper, stretched, as if something is intercepting and modifying their communications in real time. Ramirez stares at her sonar, display in disbelief. The contact is moving in geometric patterns, perfect circles, figure eights. No marine life moves with that kind of mathematical precision. It's studying our technology, Douglas realizes with growing alarm. Whatever's out there is learning how our equipment works by listening to our transmissions. The hull groaning returns, but now it carries harmonic frequencies that match their radio transmissions. The creature is somehow incorporating human technology into its own communication methods. Cole removes his headphones as feedback screeches through the communication system. It's not just listening to us, it's learning to talk like us. Harris tries one final transmission. Control, Deep 6 reporting critical situation. Unknown entity is demonstrating advanced intelligence and technological adaptation. The response comes back in their own voices, perfectly mimicked but layered with that impossible low-frequency moan. Deep 6, unknown entity, technological adaptation. The crew exchanges terrified glances as they realize their communications are being analyzed, learned, and reflected back by something that exists far beyond their understanding of marine biology. The Trias-2's floodlights suddenly illuminate something that shouldn't exist in any ocean on Earth. What emerges from the darkness defies every principle of marine biology the crew thought they understood. Mother of God, Chief Petty Officer. Cole breathes, his voice barely audible over the sound of their own rapid breathing. The creature's body stretches beyond their light range in both directions, a serpentine form that seems to have no beginning or end. Its hide isn't the smooth skin of a whale or the scales of a fish, but something that appears almost metallic, covered in intricate patterns that pulse with bioluminescent light. Lieutenant Commander Harris struggles to maintain command composure as his mind processes the impossible sight. Ramirez, are you documenting this? The Navy will never believe our reports without visual evidence. Recording everything, sir. Ensign Ramirez confirms, though her hands shake as she operates the camera controls. But the size readings don't make sense. Sonar indicates the body length exceeds our equipment's maximum range. The creature's hide displays complex geometric patterns that shift and flow like living tattoos. The bioluminescent designs pulse in rhythm with the low-frequency sounds they've been hearing, as if the creature's entire body is a massive communication organ. Petty Officer Douglas monitors their position relative to the massive form. Sir, we're not just observing it. We're inside its territory. Those patterns on its hide, they're responding to our presence. The Leviathan moves with impossible grace for something so enormous. Its body undulates in slow, hypnotic waves that create currents strong enough to rock their submersible. Each movement is deliberate, controlled, suggesting intelligence that operates on a scale beyond human comprehension. Harris tries to process what military protocols apply to first contact with an unknown species of this magnitude. Maintain position. Do not make any aggressive moves. We're observers only. Too late for that, sir, Cole says grimly. Look at those patterns. It's been watching us since we entered the trench. This isn't first contact. This is it deciding whether we're worth its attention. The creature's massive head becomes visible in their lights, streamlined like a whale, but covered in the same pulsing patterns. Sensory organs that might be eyes reflect their illumination from multiple points along its skull. How long has it been down here? Ramirez wonders aloud. Those patterns, the way it moves, this isn't some unknown species of whale. This is something else entirely. The Leviathan circles them once in a movement so vast it takes nearly a minute to complete. During the circuit, its body passes beneath, above, and around them, making it clear that their submersible exists entirely within the creature's domain. Cole's veteran instincts scream warnings as the enormous being completes its inspection. It's not aggressive, it's curious, but something this big being curious about us might be worse than if it were hostile. The patterns on the creature's hide pulse brighter, and the crew realizes they're witnessing communication on a scale that transcends their understanding of life itself. Without warning, a massive shockwave slams into the Trieste-2. The submersible tumbles through the water as emergency alarms shriek throughout the cramped cabin. Red warning lights flood the interior as electrical systems flicker and spark. Hull breach. Petty Officer Douglas shouts over the chaos, his hands flying across damage control panels. No, wait, hull integrity holding, but we've got system failures across the board. Lieutenant Commander Harris struggles against his restraints as the submersible continues to spin. Report. What hit us? Not hit, sir. Chief Petty Officer Cole corrects, reading his instruments through the flashing emergency lights. Pressure. Wave. Something massive just moved very fast, very close to us. The main viewing porthole shows a spider web of hairline fractures spreading across the reinforced glass. Douglas stares at the damage in horror. That glass is rated for pressures we'll never reach. What kind of force creates fractures like that? Ensign Ramirez fights to restore their communication systems as sparks cascade from damaged electronics. Oxygen scrubbers are offline. We're running on reserve air supply only. The hull groaning returns, but now it's accompanied by something else, a sound that freezes their blood. Through their damaged communication system comes a voice that matches Cole's exactly, speaking words he never said. Surface control, this is Deep 6. We are experiencing catastrophic failure. The creature has breached our hull. We are taking on water rapidly. Cole stares at the radio in shock. That's my voice, but I never said those words. Harris grabs the communication microphone. Control, disregard previous transmission. Deep 6 is intact, but experiencing system failures. Do not attempt rescue operations. The response comes in Harris's own voice, perfectly mimicked. Control, Deep 6 is intact. System failures manageable. Continuing mission parameters. It's learning our voices, Douglas realizes with growing panic. Whatever's out there can perfectly replicate our speech patterns. The oxygen levels continue dropping as their life support systems struggle with damage from the pressure wave. Each breath becomes more precious as they realize their reserve air won't last long enough for a normal ascent. Through the fractured porthole, bioluminescent patterns pulse in the darkness, the same geometric designs they saw on the creature's hide, but now they seem to be communicating directly to the submersible. Ramirez monitors their dwindling air supply with growing desperation. 40 minutes of breathable atmosphere remaining, sir. After that, we become part of whatever's down here, Cole finishes grimly. The voice mimicry continues through their damaged radio, fragments of their own words played back. In perfect replication, as if the creature is practicing human speech by repeating everything they've said. Harris makes the hardest decision of his command career. Prepare for emergency ascent. We're leaving. Now. Lieutenant Commander Harris's hands shake as he initiates emergency ascent procedures. All ballast released. Maximum power to vertical thrusters. We're going up whether our passenger wants us to or not. The Trieste-2 shudders as compressed air forces water from their ballast tanks. Normally, this would send them rocketing toward the surface, but the submersible barely moves. We're not ascending, Petty Officer Douglas reports, panic creeping into his voice. Full ballast release, maximum thruster power, but we're maintaining depth. Chief Petty Officer Cole checks the sonar display and his face goes pale. Sonar shows solid contact above us. We're blocked. Something's preventing our ascent. On the damaged external cameras, they can see why. The Leviathan has positioned itself directly overhead, its massive body creating a living ceiling that traps them. In the depths, the creature's bioluminescent patterns pulse in what might be amusement or curiosity. It's toying with us. Ensign Ramirez whispers, watching the patterns flow across the creature's hide. We're not escaping, we're being studied. Harris considers their options as precious oxygen continues to deplete. Lateral movement. If we can't go up, we go sideways until we're clear, then ascend. Douglas engages the horizontal thrusters, but the submersible moves sluggishly through water that seems thicker than it should be. The creature's massive form creates currents and pressure zones that make navigation nearly impossible. It's hurting us, Cole realizes with growing dread. Every time we try to move in one direction, the water resistance increases. We're being guided. The oxygen alarm begins its shrill warning. Red numbers on their life support display count down the minutes remaining before suffocation becomes inevitable. 15 minutes of breathable air, Ramirez reports. After that, carbon dioxide poisoning will make us unconscious before we can reach the surface. Harris makes a desperate decision. Full power to all systems. Below every safety protocol. If we're going to break free, it has to be now. The submersible's engines strain beyond their design limits as every thruster fires simultaneously. The hull vibrates dangerously, but they begin moving upward despite the creature's presence. It's working, Douglas shouts. We're ascending. But their celebration is premature. The sonar display shows the Leviathan moving to intercept their escape route. The creature isn't letting them go. It's deciding whether to allow their departure. Cole monitors their ascent rate against their remaining air supply. We're climbing, but not fast enough. At this rate, we'll run out of oxygen before we reach safe decompression depth. Through the darkness above, the creature's bioluminescent patterns pulse in complex sequences, as if it's communicating with something else in the depths, something they haven't seen yet. We're not the only ones down. Here, Harris realizes with horror as more lights begin appearing in the darkness around them. Cut all power except life support, Lieutenant Commander Harris orders in a desperate whisper. If we can't outrun it, maybe we can hide from it. The Trieste-2 goes dark, its floodlights and engines shutting down simultaneously. In the absolute blackness of the deep trench, they become just another piece of debris floating in the void. Petty Officer Douglas monitors their systems on emergency power. Hull temperature dropping to match ambient water. If we're lucky, we'll blend into the thermal background. Through their damaged porthole, bioluminescent patterns begin appearing in the darkness around them. Not the massive displays they saw on the Leviathan, but smaller, more intricate designs that pulse and flow like underwater constellations. There are dozens of them. Ensign Ramirez breathes, watching the patterns multiply in the darkness. We didn't find one creature. We found an entire ecosystem. Chief Petty Officer Cole studies the light patterns with the eye of a veteran sailor. Those aren't random. Look at the sequences, the way they pulse in response to each other. That's language. The patterns grow more complex, flowing in three-dimensional spirals and geometric forms that hurt to watch directly. The lights seem to carry meaning beyond human understanding, communicating concepts that exist outside their frame of reference. They're beautiful, Ramirez whispers, momentarily forgetting their danger as she watches the alien communication system. Harris checks their air supply with growing desperation. 8 minutes of oxygen remaining. Beautiful or not, we need to surface. Suddenly, the Leviathan returns. Its massive bulk blocks out the smaller light patterns as it approaches their darkened submersible. The creature moves slowly, deliberately, as if it knows they're trying to hide. Without warning, it rams them. The impact sends the Trieste-2 spinning through the water as alarms shriek and systems fail. The already fractured porthole spiderwebs further, and Douglas watches in terror as pressure indicators spike toward critical levels. Hull integrity compromised, he shouts over the chaos. We've got microfractures forming along the primary pressure seals. The creature strikes again, not trying to destroy them, but testing their limits. Each impact is precisely calculated to cause damage without immediate catastrophic failure. It's playing with us, Cole realizes with horror. Like a cat with a mouse. It could crush us instantly, but it wants to see how much we can take. The bioluminescent patterns around them pulse brighter, and Harris realizes they're witnessing something unprecedented. The creature is communicating with its kind about the strange visitors from the surface world. We're not just being hunted, Harris says grimly. We're being studied, and when the experiment is over. Another impact rocks the submersible, and this time the hull breach alarm joins the cacophony of warnings filling their cramped cabin. The Trieste-2 breaks the surface of the Pacific in an explosion of foam and spray, its damaged hull gleaming. under harsh sunlight that seems impossibly bright after the depths. Emergency klaxons wail from the surface support vessels as Navy rescue teams rush to secure the submersible. Lieutenant Commander Harris staggers from the hatch, his face pale and drawn from oxygen deprivation and psychological trauma. Behind him, his crew emerges like survivors from a nightmare, shaken, exhausted, and forever changed by what they witnessed in the deep. Chief Petty Officer Cole's hands shake uncontrollably as medics check his vital signs. "We need to report this immediately. The Navy needs to know what's down there." "Belay that," Admiral Kellerman commands, appearing on the deck with a full security detail. His expression is grim as he surveys the damaged submersible. "This mission is now classified beyond your clearance level." Ensign Ramirez clutches the data recordings from their descent. "Sir, we have documentation of an unknown species that demonstrates intelligence and technological adaptation. This could change everything we know about marine biology." "Admiral," Kellerman extends his hand. "All recordings, all documentation, all personal logs will be transferred to my custody immediately." This is not a request. Petty Officer Douglas points to the cracked viewing porthole. "Look at that damage. No known marine life could create those pressure fractures. The evidence is right there." The evidence shows a submersible that suffered structural failure during a routine geological survey, Admiral Kellerman states firmly. Equipment malfunctions under extreme pressure are not uncommon. Harris steps forward, his command authority reasserting itself despite his shaken state. "Admiral, with respect, we encountered something that challenges our understanding of what lives in our oceans. The crew has a right to. The crew has signed non-disclosure agreements that extend beyond their military service," Admiral Kellerman interrupts. "Gentlemen, what you experienced today never happened. The mission logs will reflect a successful geological survey with minor equipment failures." Security personnel begin removing all electronic equipment from the submersible. Data drives, audio recordings, even personal items that might contain evidence disappear into sealed containers. Cole watches his logbook being confiscated. 15 years I've served this Navy. I've kept quiet about things that would give civilians nightmares. But this is different. People need to know. Admiral Kellerman's voice carries the weight of absolute authority. "Chief, you speak of this to anyone, your wife, your priest, your own reflection, and you'll lose your pension, your security clearance, and your freedom. The same goes for all of you." Harris realizes the full scope of the cover-up as military. Personnel swarm over their submersible. "You knew, didn't you? This wasn't a discovery mission. This was confirmation." Admiral Kellerman's silence is answer enough as the damaged Trieste-2 is towed away for immediate decommissioning. 3 months later, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Cole sits alone in his empty apartment, officially retired from the Navy with full honors and a pension that ensures his silence. The walls are bare, packed boxes stacked in corners. He's moving far from the ocean, far from memories of impossible depths. In the darkness of his kitchen, Cole speaks quietly into a small handheld recorder, one of the few personal items the Navy didn't confiscate. His voice carries the weight of a man who has seen too much and can tell no one. Personal log, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Cole, final entry. Today marks 93 days since the Trieste-2 mission. Official records show a successful geological survey. The truth is something else entirely. He pauses, listening to the silence of his empty apartment. Outside, waves crash against the nearby shore, a sound that once brought him comfort but now fills him with unease. Commander Harris was transferred to a desk job in Kansas. Ramirez was assigned to Arctic research stations. Douglas took early retirement and moved to Colorado, as far from the ocean as he could get. They scattered us to the winds. Cole takes a sip from a glass of whiskey, his hands steadier now, but his eyes haunted by memories of bioluminescent patterns and impossible eyes staring back from the depths. But here's what they don't understand, what none of them understand. We didn't escape that thing. We were released. There's a difference between getting away and being allowed to leave. Through his kitchen window, he can see the Pacific stretching to the horizon, even from miles inland. He swears he can feel something vast and ancient stirring in those depths. I've been monitoring seismic reports, sonar anomalies, unexplained maritime incidents. The patterns are there if you know what to look for. Fishing boats reporting equipment failures in specific grid coordinates. Commercial vessels changing course to avoid areas where their instruments malfunction. A low rumble shakes his apartment. Could be a truck passing outside, could be something else. Cole's military instincts make him check the locks on his doors. It's moving, getting closer to populated shipping lanes. Testing our responses. Learning. He holds the recorder closer, his voice dropping to a whisper filled with dread and certainty. Beneath the trench, something still waits. And it remembers every word we spoke, every sound our technology made, every detail of how we think and operate. We went down there as observers, but we came back as teachers. Static interrupts the recording, electronic interference that shouldn't affect a simple analog device. Through the static comes a sound that makes Cole's blood freeze, the low, rhythmic groaning they heard through the Trieste-2's hull. It remembers. Cole whispers as the recording cuts to silence, leaving only the sound of waves and the growing certainty that humanity's time as masters of the ocean is ending.